Hello, hello. This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and this is the Early Bird Artcast. This is where I get up super early. Everybody else who tends to be on this show doesn't get up super early because they're all right over the pond over there where it's it's still daytime or something. So, but I get up early, so. I'm just not. I'm not a night owl. I'm an early bird. So it's the Early Bird Artcast, and today we're going to talk about how to find an artist for your comic book project. But before we get to that, today we have once again Mr. Russ Leach, comic book black belt,
Hi there.
of the YouTube channel Comic Book Black Belt. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm not as tired as you because it's about 5. Oh, it's about 10 to 11 over here. But yeah, doing okay. Thanks. I got tea.
Awesome. And what are you working on today? I know you probably can't show it, but
yeah, I can kind of get away with these things. Where are we? Today I'm still doing storyboarding. Let's click this up. So these are just the rough pencils for it. So this is me working out some diggers, and they're coming towards our hero, and they're not manned. They have their own characters. So this is him turning up at the scene. You can see I've got some photographic reference in there because it's important for the shoot. And then he walks into the scene, and the diggers start doing their thing, and they're supposed to represent Cerebus of Hell. So I can say that much.
Cool, man. Sweet. So let's see. I got a question, and let me make sure. I should have done this while we were hanging out, but or while you were talking. I was too busy looking at your thumbnails there. But let's see. Oh, wait, it's actually letting me show Clip Studio Paint. That never does that. Now that YouTube Hangouts is going away, it's gonna let me do what I've been wanting to do all along.
I heard the other day that YouTube Hangouts aren't actually going away. They're being rebranded.
Oh, okay.
And what they wanted to do was in some way subdivide the services that they had. And so I think that the Google Hangouts will continue, but not named and run exactly the same way. So there's still hope that we can still use it.
Yeah, I mean, there's other options and stuff, but I mean, it's just so cool to be able to have, those, for these people, me and many other channels who have guests on, and it's like the screen comes up when you talk. I mean, I don't love the quality of Google Hangouts, but at the same time, like it's such a great platform to do this and have a conversation and build a community.
Yeah.
It would be a shame if we can't do that anymore.
I hope that it's all it is just as they say, they're just doing a bit of renaming and rebranding, and the core aspect, the core element of what makes it so great stays. Because
exactly.
I'm totally with you on this, because I've been building friendships and connections, and only really doing it in the last 6 to 9 months, and it's made a big difference to my working environment as far as being able to talk to people. Like now, I don't get a lot of opportunity to sit in a studio environment and talk to people, and not for a long time now, since I was in design, and it really does make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's like our worldwide bullpen. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is totally cool. Yeah, I love it.
Cool. So to the topic today, I brought up this topic of trying to find an artist because my buddy Mario, known as Marv Artwork on YouTube, he watches the show often, and he's always commenting. He's an awesome dude. He's a really great artist as well. He's got some videos on his YouTube. You should definitely check it out. And he sent a question that he specifically said, would probably be good for a show. And I thought he was right. So I'll read that to you guys. He says, I'm finishing writing my comic and I'm thinking to hire an artist. I want a style that I don't know how to make, the Silver Age style. The worst part is I don't know how to do it. What do I need to know? How do I approach an artist? What questions do I ask? Can I show thumbnails to artists? And can he or she tell me how much it costs? So yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people are kind of curious about as well. So I think this will be a great thing to chat about, and especially having Russ here because Russ is an artist. I mean, I guess we both are to a certain degree.
Without doubt, we both are. You are an artist, don't?
Oh yeah, that's, I guess yes, absolutely. But we're both artists who could possibly be hired, and who sometimes people approach to be hired. So I'm curious, Russ, what would you like? What do you look at when somebody's approaching you and saying, "Hey, I got a cool comic project. What, do you think you'd be able to help me?" Or, what are you looking for as the artist?
I'm looking for first and foremost someone that I can trust, and I know that's kind of like putting the horse before the cart, because how are you supposed to know how you can trust someone until you've worked with them or known them for a while? But I think it's about their approach. I think if people are professional, if they can, in their first approach to you, if they can come across, when I say professional, I suppose it comes down to politeness and clarity. If somebody gives you a garbled message from the word go, then it's pretty difficult to take them seriously. So that first connection is very important, that you approach someone very clearly. If you're looking for an artist, certainly that's what I look for if somebody approaches me. But also moving on from that, what they expect to get out of you and what they expect to get out of the project. So, if you're a jobbing artist and you're used to getting paid for what you do, and not just back end work, which I have been involved with, then there needs to be an agreement up front of to how much is going to get paid. It's always a bit of a bone of contention about how much time is taken and how much worth is given to a writer and an artist particularly on comic books. And I would say that it's completely equal. They both need each other. However, the amount of work, labor hours that is done heavily comes down on the artist side. So even though you both might agree to say, let's do a project together and see where it goes, and we'll get 50-50 out of it at the end of the day, if the artist does, I don't know, 5 or 10 pages to go to a pitch with, that's a lot of time and effort, and especially if that is not the artist's idea, if literally they're just reconstituting or translating the story that they've been given. So I think sometimes you need to, if you're a writer and you're looking to get an artist, I think you need to be prepared to invest some money as well as time into it. That it is skewed in the favor of the artist at that point because you're paying them out of your own pocket. But I think even if it's just a small amount of money financially, just to get the thing going and show that you're committed. It doesn't have to be major page rates. You're talking like, say you come to an artist who has no foot in it, as it were. They've got no part or capital in the idea. And you say, okay, I need 5 pages and I'm going to go to a publisher with this, and I really believe in this idea, and we can do really well out of it. But in the 6 to 9 months that it might take to turn around that publisher to get the idea, the artist has given you 5 days of their life, and they haven't been able to earn any money in that 5 days. So I think it is important that writers understand that if they come to an artist with the idea, that they have to at least give something as a sort of a down payment on what they see is happening later on. That's not to say that a writer should have to finance a whole book. That's what crowdfunding's for, in my view. That's why you get together. But at that point, you really must think about, and this is where it comes back to the clarity and to be able to trust people. You really need to be able to communicate properly with each other, and you probably also need to sign a small agreement. It doesn't have to be, from a solicitor or a lawyer or anything like that, but just a small email agreement where you can both agree, yeah, that's what we're going to take out of the proceeds. So clarity, I think, and that basis where both of you can trust each other. That's the starting point, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of things that you said there made a lot of sense. Finding somebody who you can trust, or kind of generating that situation where trust is there. And it's all about the approach, is something I heard you saying. Then you want to talk about the money. Obviously, is gonna this takes a lot of work and a lot of time, so it's got to be worth anybody's while to get involved in this. It can't just be for exposure. That's just that's not a thing that is helpful in most situations. So that's don't try to get what you can get out of an artist. You want to do this in an up, kind of a like a stand-up way. You want basically the perception of what business is like, and that's exactly what you're doing when you're trying to approach an artist. Is you're going kind of into business with them to a not a huge crazy degree, but to a a certain degree, and and a lot of people's perception of what business is sometimes they think it's like slimy, or like it's one person kind of getting the upper hand, or somebody being a boss, and that doesn't have to be the case. When you get into any kind of business transaction, there's no reason why you can't set up a situation where both people are winning, and both people are getting something out of it and giving into it. So you want to think about what's fair as far as money goes, and you want to try to figure out a way to make that happen. Like Russ said, whether it's through crowdfunding or not. But I think he also brought up a great point of at least throwing some upfront money. Show the person. That's kind of a way to build the trust and be like, what, I could use like 2 sample pages and maybe another illustration or something like that. How much would that be? And then, it depends on your relationship and if you know the person. I like the idea of good communication as well. You want to have these signs of that you guys can work together. You're kind of, having kind of a test illustration or something, even if it's just a pinup or whatever, to see if you guys even can work together. That's kind of part of it too. And also pay attention to your gut. There you might get a bad feeling, and you don't want to get trapped into a situation where either party is working with somebody who something just doesn't feel right. And usually that basically means that you just don't feel like you can trust the person, or the communication isn't going well. That's a big one, because I've heard many stories where people are working on a project, and somebody just stops communicating, you don't want that to happen. It's like both parties have invested time and effort into this, and you know, if you get to that point and somebody's not communicating, it's like, oh well, I just, all that went to waste. What did I just spend my last, week or month or couple months doing?
Hmm.
Nobody wants to be in that situation.
Yeah,
Um,
nailed it. Yeah, definitely. I think what you were saying about uh, getting test pages, or at least a test illustration, but also you can look back and see what they've done. If you're approaching artists, or artists are approaching you, say you go to a Facebook group, which there are several, where you can connect with other artists, and you say, okay, I've got a story to do. I'm looking to produce a book that eventually we would both benefit from, say, 50-50, but I need to get a few pages done, and say I want to throw $50 a page, and I want to do 5 pages. Is anybody interested? And you get a whole bunch of responses. And then you say, right, okay, I need links and connections. I need to see your portfolio before I think about hiring you to do the 5 pages.
mhm.
Yeah. And that will weed a lot of people out, to be honest, to be frank, because there'll be a lot of people that don't have proper galleries. They might say, oh, here's my Facebook page. And you go to their Facebook page and they got pictures of their cat on there, and they got their family and what have you. And that's not a committed page. They need to have an art page,
Yeah.
or they need to have a portfolio page. They need a Behance page, or they need a page on DeviantArt, or they need their own website, something like that, that shows they're committed to their craft. And then beyond that, you want to see that they've had experience drawing comic book pages.
Yeah.
Just doing nice illustrations doesn't cut it in the world of sequential art.
Mhm.
There are plenty of artists that are far better than I am, but that doesn't mean that they can make a moving story. And that's where the skill is. That's what comics are really about, a moving story. It's like filming with a strobe light on, and you're picking out each strobe flash as a panel almost, and that's what it's about. So you need to look at those artists, see that they're capable of doing what they're doing, and then if you think they've got roughly the right style, or they are capable of doing what you want, then you can approach them and say, would you be prepared to do just a quick illustration for me to show me that you're capable, and that we could maybe do this work together, and do the 5 pages or whatever. And then if it's only 5 pages and we're talking about a nominal amount of money, then maybe you could give them 50% up front and 50% when they finished. And at least we're only talking about, say you did 5 pages, you only be talking about, say, $200, say 100 or 150 bucks up front. And maybe that would be enough, and it wouldn't be a huge loss to you. Yeah, it wouldn't be massive amounts of money that you'd be putting down. And so you wouldn't want to keep losing that on lots of different artists, of course. No one would. But at least you're showing commitment at your end, and then they can show commitment at their end. And you also want to get schedules out of them. You don't just want to say, right, okay, I need these. I want you to do 5 pages for me. I really like your art style. I can see that you know what you're doing. Let's talk about commissioning these first 5 pages so that we can go to a publisher with it, and I'll put down $100 in your PayPal account, but I want to see the pages within a week. And if they can't do that within a week, or within whatever timeline you decide to do, then you know that you're kind of potentially involving yourself with a flaky artist.
Mm.
And as someone who and I know you do as well, I can see the way you work, very committed and disciplined about what you do, and that's a true professional. That's what you need to do. And if that's really what you want to do, if you're not just doing it because you fancy doing it, or because it's a bit of a laugh, or I like doing it on the side, and I'm not saying that every comic book artist has to want to do it as a career, but they do have to be committed to storytelling. Whether that's for vast sums of money, whether that's for their career, or whether it's because it's something they love. And of course, the writer has produced this 5 pages to go to a publisher with, because they love what they're doing. They love their craft. The writer has put this together, gone out and found an artist. If that artist is flaky for whatever reason, you don't want to know, because you're not going to get your book done, and you're probably going to lose out some way. So exactly what you were saying about needing examples, samples, but also samples of how someone works, as in the way that they interact with you professionally. And yeah, I think you nailed it in what you were saying.
Yeah, man. A lot of good points in there for sure. And, kind of to that as well is, you know, I guess I'll kind of look at it from the other perspective of the person hiring a little bit, because I've kind of dabbled in that as well. And one thing that I look at for an artist is, like you were saying, like their work ethic, and like what do I see from them? Like there's certain people online that I really want to work with, and it's not even because I love their art style as much as I see that they get pages out constantly. I can tell because of their online presence, they show what they're working on as they're working. And I'm like, that is a person I want to work with, because their work is good. It might not be a specific style I'm looking for. So if you don't need a specific style, that's actually a kind of a benefit, because you can. For me, the way I would work is I would see an artist that I like, and I'd be like, okay, what kind of thing do I think they would work? They would really shine at with their work. Like, what kind of stuff does it seem like they really like to draw? I'd even ask them if I was going to pursue it more.
Yeah.
And I would write something in that vein, because I want them to be excited about the project. This isn't quite Mario's situation. A lot of people just have a story they want to tell. So they're like, okay, I need an artist. What can I do? Where can I find one? Another thing is for me, say I had never done anything online, and I don't have YouTube, and I'm just, have a few social media, but it's just more for personal or whatever. And then it's like, oh, I have this comic book idea. And, then I'm like, all right, I need to find an artist for it. Well, that's going to be a little bit tougher than the position I'm in now, because right now I happen to know tons of artists. Not only do I know them, I have like pretty good relationships with them, like better than like I don't really have that many friends that are not online these days, like as close even sometimes. So to me, it's funny because with 100 Days of Making Comics, we've all been this kind of group, a lot of us, and it's like it's only just now, after years of kind of just being friends with each other and kind of encouraging each other on our journeys and all that kind of stuff. It's only now that we're all starting to be like, hey, wait, maybe we don't all have to do every single thing on all of our individual projects. Maybe we can actually work together, and create some things, and it'll be a lot easier because we all know how to do everything when it comes to this stuff, or at least part of everything. And so, it also comes down to community, and Mario specifically is being involved in that community. So, I would look into the people who you already know, because it's easier to trust people if you already know them to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And it seems more natural to like approach them. Like, I recently basically am talking, or I'm going to announce that I'm going to collaborate with Mike Emirates. And, to me, I mean, I've literally already made 2 anthologies with him for one. But, if I were to approach him out of the blue, like we wouldn't have that situation, that relationship. Like I know that we have a trust together. Like he knows that I'm good for, whatever I say. So, you know, I am trying to approach it like, well, I want to pay you. I don't want to like let it be like this thing where you're working on spec. But in that situation, it's actually like it's not that big a deal to work on spec because you know that the other person's good for it. You've already worked with the person, so you
Yeah.
know, in that situation, it actually is kind of okay. But that's not something you would ever normally do is work on spec. That's not a good idea to do, generally.
No, I think you're right. Because you make relationships, um, it means that you can do that kind of thing. I mean, I've worked with a couple of writers, and I've done it on spec
Yeah.
because I know the writer, because I've worked with them before professionally on gigs for bigger publishers.
Hmm.
And they've come to me and said, I really like your art style. Do you fancy doing something for a publisher and getting that out to them and making a pitch? And I will do that. But I think what we're talking about as well is that potential for basically not knowing someone,
Hmm.
coming to it completely cold, um, and having to start a relationship with another creator and finding out whether you can trust that creator or not. So that's two different. It's two very different circumstances. So you can't just put a blanket on it and say never work for spec, never do anything unless there's money on the table and all the rest of it. Because, as you say, you can make relationships with people and trust them for different, for wholly different reasons, because you've worked with them on something else or you've seen the way they work in a group. And so you can take that chance on them and feel like you're not going to get dumped on effectively.
Yeah, yeah, and I kind of think of it as like, in some ways it's a little bit like, courting or approaching somebody, who you might like romantically or something, and you know, it's so weird. Like I think a lot of people, um, they meet people, in school and they become friends, or they meet people in at the workplace and they become friends, and that way of kind of forming a relationship that ends up being romantic, like it kind of ends up being a much more natural way of doing things.
Mm,
So to me, that's where I'm most comfortable because I've been friends with a lot of people, and now I'm starting to collaborate with a lot of people. But it's such a natural thing because we're all creative, and we're just all of a sudden it's like, oh well, wouldn't it be great, to actually work with this person, not just be friends with them. So it kind of works out pretty good in that way. Um, let's see if there's anything in the chat. We got some people here. Sam T, Sideburns, which is, you know, um, why can't all of a sudden I can't think of his name? Uh, oh no, I'm always watching his videos, and we talk all the time. Speaking about that kind of thing. Marius is in here. That's a funny thing. Like my buddy Marius, like we did. He helped me with my logo design, and
right.
in that one, I didn't pay him. I'd love to give him some money, but I didn't have money. I was just putting it out there, saying I'm trying to figure out my logo design and stuff, and he offered to help. But that's it's like where he helped me, and I'd be happy to help him out as well. There's been many times, and that's another way to kind of build that trust is, if say there's like an artist out there that you really Bane Flame, that's what he goes by. Sideburns, he goes by Bane Flame. And so yeah, anyways. But and he's got a cool YouTube channel. He's doing 100 days making comics. Check him out. All right. But these people like who kind of that's what I was gonna say. If there's an artist that you're like, oh man, that person's amazing, and your project isn't super time sensitive, well, you know, it's kind of tough. Like all I'd say is there is a way to kind of do things where you actually go and you invest into what they're doing, or say there's probably a better way to do it is there's a bunch of different artists that you could maybe work with that you're seeing. You're starting to get to know people, and start doing little things like um, trying to help them in whatever they're doing, maybe share their links, get to know them a little bit, because I had some people approach me before, like maybe wanting to get on the show, or like just different things, but it's like out of the blue, out of nowhere, and I
Yeah,
just don't even want to respond to that, because it's like I want to be helpful, but I can't just help anybody. I have, there's got to be some level of trust there, some even level of recognition, like who are you even, that type.
yeah,
And you got to kind of try to invest into people. And you also, there's always that technique of invest into somebody and then maybe they'll be able to help you. Well, yeah, but even that's a little bit slimy. Like, you got to invest and help people without expecting anything in return, and eventually some of these relationships will turn into something that is actually people working together.
yeah. That's exactly it. It's something I've been looking for some time, being on my own. And as you were saying, there is no bullpen in reality. So it's kind of like trying to find a YouTube bullpen for us all to kind of communicate with. And there are a lot of people out there. You see it a lot in Facebook groups where people just post and plug their latest project that they want to get sold on Kickstarter. And what they fail to do is a lot of the time they seem to be just putting their projects in places like groups that talk about latest projects, which really should be. And I'm not sure, but I feel there may have been a thing about this in Peter's group recently, is that it should be there for people to discuss the projects, not just say, please buy my book. That's a completely different group, isn't it?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people that kind of turn up, and I wanted to find a place where I could go and I could talk like this to other artists from lots of different backgrounds, because you can't go and find that place with the big artists. Yeah,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what IP I've worked on, and I've worked on some reasonably big ones. Scott Snyder isn't going to talk to me like you are.
Mhm.
It just isn't going to happen. Or Jim Lee isn't going to take the time to say, "Hi, Russ. What are your thoughts today?" None of them. I mean, it's not all about being snobbish, and big for their boots. Sometimes it's just that they're too busy. They're very busy people. They have a lot to do, but at the same time, you want to find a place where you can talk to your peers. Just sitting at a board alone is very lonely.
Yeah.
And also, as much as you have your friends and relations around you, my wife is very supportive, but she's not an artist herself, or she's not a creative herself. She's never been in that industry, so I can knock ideas around with her as a lay person, if you like, but it's very difficult to talk to her in the way that I talk to you,
Mhm.
or I talk to Peter, or the other people that I've found. Karen, for instance,
Mhm.
what we were all talking about last night about the romance stories and what have you, and it's difficult to build that rapport, and to also build a kind of a group buzz where you start thinking about, oh, maybe it'd be good to go this direction, or to try something different. And if somebody just comes at you out of the blue and says, I'm doing an anthology and I'd really like you to do 5 pages for me, you're like, yeah, that's great, but can I eat in that time? Are you going to pay me? Whereas if you're in a group of people and somebody says, let's do an anthology, it's like, okay, I think I can commit a little bit of my personal time to that. I'm already involved in a group of people that I like and think are quite cool and creative themselves. I'd like to give some time to it, and it's a whole different process, a whole different approach. And it's not all about money. It's not all about what can I get professionally. Sometimes it's about being involved with other creatives and getting the feedback and getting different experiences, so that you can bring it to a professional gig. So yeah, I've kind of wandered off down a trail somewhere, but the whole point being is that, you know, how you approach other people and how you interact with them and how you communicate with them is very important. And you can't just turn up somewhere and expect to be trusted. You have to gain people's trust by being there for them, as in, if not particularly supportive, at least communicating and talking and interacting on the same level without wanting anything in return.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and also one thing, you know, maybe a little bit specific to Mario, and this isn't because I'm noticing anything. It's just this is generally because he has a YouTube channel. You know, make sure when you put out a video, you know, that you respond to everybody and kind of start communicating with those people and get to know them a little bit. You know, that's what I do at least, and you know, that's, I mean, literally, I think I probably know Russ because I commented on his videos and he commented on mine, and
Yeah,
that went back and forth for a little while, and to the point where it's like, oh well, you know, maybe this guy would be a good person to kind of have on the show once in a while. And so I don't remember how it all happened, but I think I probably reached out to him, said, hey, you know, you want to be in the group to come on sometime? I'd love to chat with you. And you know, now we've chatted a ton of times, you know, so
yeah,
now
yeah.
I mean, it would be a no-brainer if we decided to work together in some capacity, you know, at some point. You know, I mean, obviously it would have to be the right conditions for both of us, but you know, it would be a lot easier for me to, you know, approach Russ as opposed to, you know, hey, Sam Keith, like, can you draw my comic for me, you know, or whoever, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
artist you look up to, you know. So
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's just about, like I say, I came to YouTube because I felt that a lot of the time on Facebook and Twitter, you're simply just shouting into the void, and it's very echo. There's a lot of echo chambers, whereas you can reach pretty much all types of people on YouTube, as long as they you know, get your video in front of them. But if you go searching for specific types of people, and that's what I did, I went searching for creatives, and obviously recently there's been a whole sort of slew of people coming onto YouTube about comics, a lot of Comicsgate stuff and what have you. And I don't have an issue with Comicsgate or with anti-Comicsgate as long as they just, you know, shut up and just enjoy and create comics and stop throwing mud at each other. Other than that, you can have whatever opinion and whatever you want to do. I really don't care. What I'm interested in is creating comics. And although I found that some of the problem is that there's not much of a presence from the anti-Comicsgate side on YouTube, which isn't screaming at people. Whereas on the Comicsgate side, okay, you've got the loons, but there are a few people that are actually talking reasonably with logic, and they can be entertaining on occasion. And what I wanted to find was I wanted to find an environment on YouTube where I was literally just talking to creators about creating. Which is what we're doing now, which is like, you know, how do you do it? How do I do it? I want to watch videos about how you work and how you come up with your ideas, because that helps me, and I can maybe in some way enlighten someone else. I'm not here to talk politics. I'm here to talk comics, you know, and I wanted to find that community. So I had to go find people like yourself. And Peter, I was always sort of in the background there. I've known of Peter and spoken to Peter on occasion for the last 10 years since I started doing what I'm doing. And it was great that he was involved as well, because he really is so genuine and such a lovely guy, and has a you know, a wealth of experience and knowledge. And so I dove in, you know, and it would be easy to go chasing after YouTube channels with like 20, 30, 40 plus thousand subscribers. First off, you'd probably get lost in the noise. But also, it's like, well, once they get that big, it's it's inevitable that you're not going to be able to connect with them on a one-to-one basis, which is why you've gone to their channel in the first place, because they're funny, or they're amusing, or they're entertaining, or they have something creative to show and to teach with. So it's far better to find an environment and a little community, which is what we seem to have here, that are meeting other people along the way, and just finding YouTube channels that are just about, let's create comics and how do we do it. I was watching what's that? I'm so crap with names. Let's go to my YouTube channel and see what I was watching earlier. I was watching. Whoa! Sorry. I was watching. I'd rather be motivated. There you go. That's what I was watching. I'd rather be drawing, and that those guys. I think they've got just under 100 subscribers, and they're doing their comics for them. And obviously, they want those comics to be out there. And they were great to listen to. It was basically just like listening in to somebody chatting about their work and about how it affected them personally, and what their plans were as well, and how they were seeing and motivating themselves for those plans. And it's a human story, isn't it? That's what you want. You just want to be part of an environment where everybody's kind of working together, not necessarily on the same things, but working together. Makes you feel part of something, not just part of an industry, but part of a little collective, I suppose.
Yeah, Scott O'Green and David Fleming, those guys are awesome. Definitely recommend them. Go to I'dRatherBeDrawing.com and you'll find all their links. They definitely got some cool stuff. You need to have them on. I'm surprised I haven't had either of them on yet, but yeah, I mean, what you're saying, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And I want to also say that encourage people, like, just because somebody is really popular, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's off the table of a possibility. But I think what Russ is kind of saying, and I agree, is kind of play in a pool that you're able to play in. I mean, you can only do what you can do. It's hard to like say, hey, Todd McFarlane, can you draw my comic? But like, there might be different connections you could find. But like, if there's somebody out there, even on a lower level, who's maybe a YouTuber or just online, they have a cool online presence, and they're not like a superstar comic creator, I mean, it doesn't hurt to try, at least give it a shot, But I mean, one thing for me is, like, I did reach out to Doug TenNapel when he first kind of really started a lot of videos and stuff, and he was doing at that point he was doing his first Indiegogo, I think. And I reached out to him, and he did actually respond. I wanted him to come on my channel or maybe go on his or whatever, and he said, yeah, I'd be down for it. And for whatever reason, it didn't actually work out, and but I wasn't surprised really, like, that it didn't work out, because he's a busy dude and he's a kind of a big name and stuff, and maybe one day in the future it'll work out. But it is worth a shot, at least to try. You never know. But I would just say don't 100% rule it out, but approach it with realizing that this may or may not work out. And you'll actually be surprised. There's definitely times I've reached out and I have gotten the person on my channel. Like, probably the biggest one is like Dan Fraga, who he used to work for Extreme Studios, and he did the comic Black Flag, and he worked on I think I don't know, he worked on Brigade and a bunch of other stuff, and now he does stuff a lot for TV and whatnot. But he came on my show, and it was a great interview, and I got to hear like all kinds of stuff from back in the days and now of what he's doing, and he was just an awesome guy. So it doesn't hurt, and I I just haven't reached out really too much to those kind of people, but at the same time, now I have that one touch point. Who knows? Maybe if I really wanted to pursue it, I could hire him eventually if I had enough money or whatever. I think it would cost more money to hire him than most of my other friends, but you know, it just you never know. You just never know. So don't rule anything out, but at the same time, have reasonable expectations. Is basically all I'm saying. You
Yeah, good advice.
know. So let's see. Oh, it's about that time actually. I didn't really get too much of the chat. Let me just see real quick if there's anything I can address real quick. Dave Hingley's in here. What's up, man? Thank you, everybody who's hanging out in the chat. Yeah. So yeah, and it goes the other way too. You know, artists need writers, and writers need artists. So
Yeah,
you know, there's no reason why you can't, you know, try to use some of these techniques and things we've talked about. Um, to do that. And also, I just want to say, like, you don't necessarily have to build this big relationship, but you do have to start to build trust in whatever thing you're going to do. There are Facebook groups out there that are specifically meant for people to, you know, connect as far as artists and writers and stuff. So I would definitely search that out. And there's other groups and places and stuff, or if there's just an artist you've never met, it doesn't hurt to approach them. But like, you know, just make sure you think about how you approach them before you just shoot them an email real quick. Let them know, hey, I know you don't really know me, but I was wondering if you are available for hire or something. You know, approach them in a professional way, basically, and you can start to build a relationship. So, you know, and as far as finding, like, Mario was talking specifically about, like, he wants a Silver Age style artist. You know, again, I would recommend Facebook groups and Deviant Art. Like, these are places you can search to find those kind of artists. And it just takes time, you know, to do that, but you can find them for sure. And yeah, I would just say make sure you approach them well and try to be clear with them, like Russ was saying and stuff. So, other than that, it is about that time, guys. I really appreciate you guys in the chat hanging out. Once again, Russ, where can people find you?
You can find me at Comic Book Black Belt on YouTube. I have a website, russleach.com, and then all the usual haunts. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook. I'm over on Minds, you know, trying different places to see where I can pick up people to talk to about comics. So yeah, just about there.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. So, thank you, Russ, once again for coming on, and thank you everybody for watching on the replay and in the chat. And we'll talk to you on the next live stream.
Great. Cheers, guys.